In French, they call it déjà vu. 2 years after the country's riots highlighted a divide between its nationals and its immigrants, it's happened all over again. Has anything changed in the banlieue? And will President Sarkozy's proposed reforms make any difference in the future? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm Kamal Santamaria. 63 years ago, at the height of World War II, the question was famously asked, is Paris burning? 63 years later, the question's not so much is it burning, but why? The city's disaffected immigrant population has been rioting again, and thousands of French police are still out in force on the streets of Paris's suburbs, trying to prevent more flare-ups like the ones which started on Sunday. Those riots were ostensibly triggered by the deaths of 2 teenagers who were killed when their motorcycle collided with a police car. But the problems go so much deeper. Unemployment, poverty, and a general disassociation between France and its immigrants. The suburbs are burning. This was the scene this week when riots broke out in the Paris suburbs. French President Nicolas Sarkozy is taking a hard line on rioters who've attacked and shot at police. He's vowing to prosecute them. Protests have spread to other parts of the country too. In Toulouse, at least 20 cars were torched Tuesday night, although clashes with police were limited. The violence is all very similar to what happened 2 years ago. Back in 2005, hundreds of youths were arrested in the outskirts of Paris. This followed the riots that started after 2 teenagers of African origin died in an alleged police chase. Frustration with a way of life in high-rise buildings like these is part of what's behind the unrest. High unemployment, poor housing and discrimination all contribute to a sense of despair. Youth unemployment is as high as 50% in some Paris suburbs. That's where many immigrants live. There are more than 1.6 million immigrants living in the Paris region. Many of them compete for limited housing. Last year, for example, more than 100,000 people applied for just 12,000 available subsidised housing units in Paris. The government hopes it can address these issues. It's proposing a 5-year urban renewal program. But many in the suburbs wonder if they can afford to wait that long. Well, joining us are our guests from Paris, Ismail Sisavana. He is a filmmaker and musician whose work is largely based on these issues. And on the telephone line, Geraldine Igouchi is a member of President Sarkozy's youth supporter group, a supporter of the UMP. Thank you both for joining us on Inside Story. Ismail Sisavana, if I can start with you there in Paris. I want to get a bit of background first from you. When you talk to a person in the banlieue, an everyday person, anyone there, what do they tell you that they want?
Basically, people want equality. Most of people just want to feel like they're part of this country. That's the problem. We got the French identity card, but we don't really feel French. I mean, like, France don't make us feel like we're really from here. That's the real problem. We just want equality, just feeling that we're part of this country.
And that's obviously what sparks the violence. Why every time is it violence and unrest? Is it because the people see no other alternative?
Yeah, it's just, you know, human beings are made this way. You got hunger, you know, and after you just need a sparkle for this hunger to explode, basically. Whatever the reason, even if the reason is not that logic, you know, it's just a sparkle. That's just the result of general anger felt by the people, you know. That's why it's every time violence, you know, pop-ups like that.
And do you feel that the people there are perhaps unfairly targeted? Do you think that perhaps there should be a little bit more emphasis placed on the reaction to these riots, the way the police react, for example?
Yes and no, because riots are riots, you know. Police is supposed to keep order, you know. I cannot say that they should let them do what they do. But the problem is, most of the time, government just talk about security and how the criminals gonna be punished and all those things. And this ain't gonna solve the problems. The problems are deeper. And every time the governments just answer about short-time solution, like, yo, we're gonna arrest all of them, the people who shot the police, they're gonna pay for that, and that's it, you know. They never go deep in the roots of the problem, of the issue. That's why every time people from the suburb feel like they're not heard, and nobody cares.
Let's go to Geraldine Aigu on the phone from Paris. Geraldine, thanks for joining us. You've heard what Ismail has said there. What's your reaction to that? Why do you think there's such a problem and such a flare-up of violence in the banlieue?
Well, it's hard to say why this problem is occurring. All I know is that they're using, an accident for no reason. I mean, they're just, going out on the streets, some people were shooting at cops. This is unacceptable. There is no excuse for this kind of behavior. Even President Sarkozy today said that this is the act of thugs. You can't let this go without being punished. So I don't know exactly why, but it's certainly very damaging and very problematic.
But do you accept that there is an underlying issue? As Ismail was telling us, the people feel detached from French society. They feel left out, that they're not being included as French people.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with that, but I mean, it's hard for immigrants to feel included in France. It's especially for these young people. I know it's not easy out in the suburbs, but I don't think that destroying, public schools or public libraries is the solution. So I do agree that the government needs to do something about this. I'm not sure what can be done at this point. I hope something can be done. I just don't know what.
Ismail Savani in Paris, what do you think about those comments from Geraldine Aigu there?
I understand the way she talks. Of course, there's no solution of burning schools or of libraries. First, I want to say that it's young people who do that. Most of people who do the riots, they're less than 20 years old most of the time. That's some really young heads. And second, the problem is, like, they don't do that. When they do that, they don't think that, oh, we're going to burn this and we're going to solve problems. The problem is that we're going to do this so at least they know there's an issue over here. And that's always the same thing. Most of the time, people get hurt only by violence. I never say it's the good things or whatever. Burning a school or library is dumb and stupid. And shooting at cops is not the right thing to do. But when people feel, and young people feel like this, they're not heard, there's no way they can hear their voice, at least when they do that, they think that then people are going to be like, oh, there's an issue there and maybe we're going to do something. I don't say it's the good thing, but I think it's the way they think,
Let's just pause for a moment. I want to go back to 2005 when President Sarkozy was Interior Minister Sarkozy. Here's a little soundbite of what he had to say, and let's have a listen to his attitude towards the problem in the banlieue.
En cas de trouble à l'ordre public et de menaces sur la
In the
paix
case of
civile,
public disturbances and threats to civil peace,
étrangère,
a foreigner in a regular
situation
situation could have his
peut se voir
residency
retirer
withdrawn
sous
under
certaines
certain
conditions
conditions
son titre de séjour
if they
s'il a
participated in
participé
riots
à des
even
émeutes,
before a
et
conviction is
ceci
made.
avant même la condamnation.
So he's a tough talker, as he was Interior Minister Sarkozy there, saying basically that people would be arrested and deported quite quickly. He also famously used the phrase or the word scum to describe these people back in 2005. Geraldine Aigu in Paris on the line there. Was that a mistake by Mr. Sarkozy back then which might haunt him, do you think?
Well, it's still up for debate, actually, but I think he was right to use the word. And actually, the context in which he used this word is very important because there was someone up in a balcony telling him, please get rid of the scum for us. And he only replied, yes, we'll get rid of the scum for you. So it's not like he said it out on his own. But I think he did the right choice. These are scum, and you have to call them by their name. This is what they are.
Ismail Savani, what do you think about that?
I think it's really easy to talk like that. The stuff is President Sarkozy. That's why people don't really like him in the banlieue, in the suburbs, because he takes shortcuts. He just want the French to be like not scared, like, yeah, we're gonna punish the criminals, those bad peoples. Because for Sarkozy, there's always the good peoples and the bad peoples. To me, life is not that simple. And when you say scums, he didn't mean maybe to talk to all the people from the suburbs, but all of them felt like he was talking to them, And you cannot fix problems saying that, oh, these people are bad, they're really bad. Once we get rid of these bad people, things gonna be okay. It's wrong. And most of the people that were doing the riots, they're not illegal aliens. Most of them, they're French born here. So what, they're gonna deport what? French people now?
We've got plenty more to talk about on this edition of Inside Story. We're going to take a short break now, though. When we come back, we'll look at the potential solutions. Could the proposed Marshall Plan bring calm and hope to France's turbulent suburbs? Back in a moment.